Hello, welcome to the Metanigma channel. I hope you all are doing well. Okay, so we started off gynecology section in our previous lecture, and that was our first lecture in which we talked about the Mullerian duct development and Wolffian duct development, how the male and female sexual development takes place in an infant. So now today we will talk about the Mullerian duct development, but it's associated anomalies. So what happens when this development does not occur normally? So what anomalies will result from this developmental disorder? This is our today's lecture. Okay, I hope you find it well. Let's talk about it. Let's begin. So this is our roadmap. These are our learning objectives. We are going to talk about the embryology because, of course, first we must understand what is exactly the normal sequence of events that occur, and then we will understand how that sequence will lead to the anomaly and at which point. Okay. Then we will talk about the U classification, which is very important classification. And then we will classify cervix and vagina, and finally clinical correlates of all this. Because if there is an anomaly, then we must understand how could it present in a clinical ward. Okay, so why this matters? It matters because Mullerian anomalies affects 4 to 7% of general female population and a much higher share of women with recurrent pregnancy losses. Okay, so patients having recurrent pregnancy losses, they might be having Mullerian tract developmental disorders. Okay, so these anomalies can present with recurrent pregnancy losses, so they are very important. We must diagnose them at the time of any ultrasound scan. Okay, so that we could make sure that there doesn't happen any pregnancy loss. And septate uterus is the most common clinically significant subtype. We will later define, and we will even talk about it in full detail in our next slides. Okay, let's talk about the development of the Mullerian or paramesonephric ducts. We all already talked about the Mullerian duct development and Wolffian duct development in our previous lecture. If you haven't watched that lecture, then you can do so. But now we will give a brief review of this Mullerian development. So it all begins by the organogenesis at the time of sixth week. So at the time of 6 weeks, you get organogenesis. This is the first step, which means that bilateral paramesonephric ducts arise from the coelomic epithelium. We have already got coelomic epithelium, which exists in the genital gonadal epithelium. Okay, so gonadal ridge contains different types of cells. Coelomic epithelium give rise to the bilateral paramesonephric ducts. So bilateral on the both sides we have got paramesonephric ducts, or they are also called Mullerian ducts. Okay, they grow caudally alongside the mesonephric or Wolffian ducts guided by them. Okay, so this is the organogenesis. Organogenesis means that the Mullerian ducts first must develop completely and functionally. Okay, so first they must develop. This is called organogenesis. Next is the fusion. So that fusion happens at the time of ninth week. So at the time of ninth week, we get the fusion of the caudal ends of the two ducts. So the caudal ends of the two ducts meet in the midline and fuse to form uterovaginal primordium. This means that it will later on form future uterus, cervix, and upper vagina. So all these structures develop from the uterovaginal primordium, or simply you can say that when the caudal portions of these ducts fuse with each other, those fused ducts will form uterus, cervix, and upper vagina. And this is called fusion process. And this happens at the time of ninth week. At the time of 11th to 12th week, there occurs a septal resorption. Septal resorption means that the medial septum between the fused ducts, it will resorb craniocaudally. From the cranial direction towards the caudal direction, it will start resorbing and converting a double cavity into one single unified uterine cavity. So this septum, which existed due to the fusion of the two uterine cavities, or due to the fusion of two Mullerian ducts, now this medial septum will resorb craniocaudally, and that will lead to the unified uterine cavity, one single cavity. Okay, so failure at any one of these three stages produces a distinct family of anomalies, the basis of the classification that follows. Okay, so we have got three different steps. First step is the organogenesis. In this step, Mullerian ducts must develop completely and normally. Okay. Then second step is the fusion. Here, the caudal portion of the two ducts must meet in the midline and fuse with each other, so that your normal uterus, cervix, and upper vagina could form. Then the third part is the septal resorption. Now, this medial septum between the fused parts must resorb completely so that it could be converted into single unified uterine cavity. So these are the three steps in the normal development of the Mullerian ducts. Okay, and if any of these three stages failure to occur, that means we have got a distinct family of anomalies from developmental failure to anomaly. Now we are talking about how these developmental failure will result in anomalies. Mullerian duct development. So we talked about, first of all, we talked about organogenesis. So organogenesis is the step where the Mullerian ducts must form completely. Now, if that step doesn't occur, that means if the air is agenesis and hypoplasia, if the duct fails to form or develop. So we have got two types of ducts. Two ducts, we already talked that there are two bilateral ducts. Okay, so if those ducts do not develop at all, they do not form at all, then we have got agenesis or hypoplasia. This will result in unicornuate uterus. Unicornuate uterus means, let's suppose if one duct developed and the other one did not develop at all, so we have got only one portion of the uterus. This is not complete uterus, it's only one portion of the uterus, so we will call it as unicornuate uterus, or MRKH, uterovaginal agenesis. We will later talk about it in full detail. Okay, but for now, you must understand that if organogenesis does not occur completely, then we have got the anomaly called agenesis or hypoplasia. Okay, and this will result only when the ducts fail to form or develop at all. Okay. This is the next step is the fusion. So next normal step is fusion. But if the fusion does not occur at all, then what will happen? Ducts fail to meet and merge in the midline. So the caudal portion of the ducts, if they do not meet in the midline and they do not merge, then it will result in bicarpodial or bicarnoid uterus. That means now we have got two different types of uterus. Two horns of the uterus, because those two horns fail to meet with each other, and now each duct will form a separate uterus. Okay, this is called bicarpodial uterus. But next step was the septal resorption. The medial septum must resorb completely so that there is one unified cavity. But in this case, what happens is that there is complete failure of septal resorption. Not complete, sometimes it will be partial. But if the septal resorption fails to occur, that means it will persist after the fusion, which will result in septate uterus. Now we have got a septum inside the cavity. So that septum will could be partial or complete. So these three steps, organogenesis and fusion and resorption, these if these steps do not occur normally, then we have got a specific type of anomaly, which is called unicornuate uterus. In case there is no organogenesis, if there is failure of fusion, then we can get bicarpodial uterus, and if there is failure of septal resorption, then we get septate uterus. Okay. Now let's talk about the classification system, which is very important from both exam point of view and from the clinical point of view. Okay, then and now let's talk about this. American Fertility Society had a classification system called ASRM classification that which developed in 1988, and this grouped anomalies by anatomical. So this American Fertility Society divided this whole anatomical anomalies by the classification on the basis of anatomy. Okay, and it has got 1 to 6 classification: agenesis, unicornuate, didelphys, biconvex, septate, arcuate, and de-escalated. So this was the previous classification. It was anatomy driven. That means it was on the basis of anatomy. So agenesis, no uterus at all. Unicornuate, there was single horn of the uterus. But didelphys, that means there were two horns. Bicornuate, septate, and arcuate. Widely taught historically, so this was the one that has been taught for throughout the history. Does not systemically classify cervical and vaginal anomalies. It does not take into account any cervical or vaginal anomalies. It only mentions about the uterine anomalies. Okay. Limited reproducibility for borderline dysmorphic cavity. So this was the previous classification. Now we have got the recent and more advanced classification, which is called ESHRE or ESGE classification, that developed in 2013. This was developed by the European Society of Human Reproduction and Embryology, or European Society for Gynecological Endoscopy. So this system classifies uterus, cervix, and vagina as independent combinable components. This means that whenever there is Mullerian duct anomaly, we already mentioned that Mullerian duct does not develop only into uterus, but it also develops into cervix as well as upper two-thirds of the vagina. Now, this classification system includes all three of these: uterine anomalies, cervical anomalies, and vaginal anomalies. Okay, based on the degree of deviation from the normal anatomy, more precise and reproducible, it has got different subclasses which are named as A, B, and C, which capture the severity within each class. Okay. Now, the preferred system in the most contemporary gynecological practice. So this is the newest and most advanced classification. This was the previous classification, and we will talk about this classification, ESHRE classification. Okay, let's talk about it. The U classification at a glance. Let's mention we have got U0 to U6. Okay, so U0, and it refers to the normal uterus, completely normal uterus. We will call it as U0. Okay, U1 is the dysmorphic uterus. U1 is the dysmorphic uterus. U2 is the septate uterus. Now we have got uterus with a septum inside it. There is a septum that divides the cavity into two portions inside the cavity. Overall, from the external, there is completely normal structure, but inside the cavity is divided into two portions. Bicorporeal uterus it means that there are two complete different cavities and horns. So we see the split, or we see the indentation from the outside. Okay, there are two fundus. You can see this fundus, this portion fundus, and now we have got two different cavities. So this almost is same as that we have got two horns of the two uterine horns, or two uterine cavities. Okay, this is called bicorporeal uterus, and this is U3 classification. U4, it occurs as hemiuterus. This means that one Mullerian duct completely developed normally, but the other one did not develop at all. Now we have got half uterus. This is called hemiuterus, half uterus, because only one portion developed. Okay. Then U5 is the aplastic uterus. That means that neither uterine cavity or Mullerian duct developed. Okay, so Mullerian duct development did not occur at all in both the ducts. So that will lead to the U5 classification, or aplastic uterus. U6 is the unclassified classified portion. This means that any other abnormalities that we might encounter on the basis of individual anomaly, we can put it into U6. So at any anomaly that does not fit into all of these previous classes, we can fit them into U6 classification. So each class U1 to U5 has lettered subclasses A, B, and C, reflecting the increasing severity. For example, we will talk about this, and these are the components. A full ESHRE ESGE diagnosis combines all three components written as UCV. For example, you will show that which one is the uterine anomaly. C0 means that there is no cervical anomaly and vaginal anomaly. Okay, so this is how we describe complete septate uterus with normal cervix and vagina. Now let's talk about this one. Okay, so this is the U1 classification. This is dysmorphic uterus, T-shaped and infantile. Let's talk about this. Okay, here, look at this. Dysmorphic uterus and septate uterus. U1 is the dysmorphic uterus. What happens in this? There is normal outer contour with an abnormal cavity shape. Okay, look at this. We have got a completely normal outer contour. Outer contour is completely normal, and we have got another abnormal cavity shape. Cavity shape is completely abnormal, while the rest of the outer contour is normal. So we have got this one. Cavity is not normal, while the outer contour is completely normal. This is called dysmorphic uterus. The cavity to wall ratio is distorted, but the fundal contour is not indented, unlike U2 or U3. Cavity is narrower or more elongated than normal. Okay, so there are three subclasses: U1A, U1B, and U1C. U1A is the T-shaped uterus. Take a look at this. This is T-shaped uterus. This uterine cavity looks like a T shape. Okay, so this is T-shaped uterus. This is infantilis. That means we have got a narrow cavity. Uterine cavity is completely narrow. Okay, this is infantilis. Okay. U1A is the T-shaped uterus, U1B is infantilis or narrow uterus. We have got narrow uterine cavity. U1C is any other dysmorphic form. Okay, so this is the first classification, U1 classification. In this classification, we have got completely normal external contour of the fundal cavity, while the inside cavity, it might be narrow, it might be T-shaped. Okay, so this is dysmorphic uterus. Second portion is the U2. That is septate uterus. This means that normal external fundal contour with a fibromuscular septum. In this case, we have got a external fundal contour is completely normal, but now there is a fibromuscular septum inside the cavity which is dividing it into two cavities from failure of the medial septum to resorb after normal fusion. So why does this happen? Septate uterus occurs when there is a failure to resorb the medial septum. So we have got a septum inside the cavity, most common clinically relevant anatomy. So there are two subclasses, U2A and U2B. U2A, this is partial septum. That is that this septum covers less than 50% of the cavity, while the complete septum is the septum that reaches the internal os. Now take a look at this. External fundal contour is completely normal. You see here, this is, but now we have got a septum inside the cavity which is dividing it into two cavities, and this is the partial septum, while this one is the complete septum. That means it extends from the external fundal contour towards the internal os. So this is the complete septum. Now we have got two cavities, but the externally it looks completely normal. This is called septate uterus or class U2. Okay, now let's talk about the U3 classification. U3 is the bicarpodial uterus. Why does it happen? It means that an indented split external fundal contour, two uterine horns form from incomplete fusion of the duct. So those two ducts didn't fuse completely at all, and now we have got two uterine horns. Formerly this was called bicarpodial uterus. It may coexist with the septum, so bicarpodial septate. So there are three subclasses, U3A, U3B, and C. U3A is the partial bicarpodia. That means there is a fundal cleft only. Now look at this portion. There was, in this portion, there was complete septal. The fundal contour was completely normal, but now we have got an indentation inside the fundus. So this indentation, this will show that this is a bicorporeal uterus, but it's a partial indentation. Okay, now it's a complete indentation. The fundus is completely going on inside the cavity. Okay, now we have got two horns of the uterus. So this is called bicarporeal. Now this is bicarporeal septate U3C classification, in which there is an indentation of the fundus. Along with it, there is a septum. So this is bicarporeal septate fundus. Okay, this is U3A, U3B, and this one is the U3C. Okay, so U4 is this hemiuterus. This means only one duct developed normally, while the other was completely absent or rudimentary, formerly called as uniconduit uterus. Functioning horn is often smaller than a normal uterus with a single fallopian tube. So there is single fallopian tube, and it is a normal uterus, but often smaller than the normal. Okay, subclasses are U4A and B. U4A means with a rudimentary horn. There is a functional, it could be functional or obstructed, and U4B means without any rudimentary horn. Now look at this. This is class 4 hemiuterus. That means that only one duct developed, and this is half portion of the uterus, while the other, if there is present the complete resorption didn't occur at all, then there was with rudimentary cavity, and if there is no Mullerian duct development at all, then there is no rudimentary cavity. So U4 classification, U4A and U4B. U4A means there is rudimentary cavity. The other Mullerian duct did develop, but partially. But now here, in this case, the other duct did not develop at all. So we have got U4B classification, that is no rudimentary cavity. Now let's talk about the U5. U5 is the aplastic uterus, that is failure of both ducts to canalize. Both ducts did not canalize at all. So now we have got rudimentary or absent uterine cavity bilaterally. On the both sides, there is no uterine cavity at all. Okay, severe end of spectrum is shown in the MRKF syndrome. Okay, the subclasses are U5A and U5B. U5A with bilateral rudimentary horns or cavities bilaterally. That means both of the horns or cavities are rudimentary. There is no cavity at all. So, okay, and U5B is without any rudimentary cavity, complete aplasia. Now, let's see here. This is U5 classification, aplastic uterus. No cavity with rudimentary cavity and no rudimentary cavity. There is complete aplastic uterus. The Mullerian ducts did not develop at all. Okay. Now, unclassified cases are reserved for U6 classification, reserved for rare malformations that do not fit any main class. For example, atypical combined anomalies discovered on imaging that require individual description than the standard code. Okay. So, and now let's talk about the cervical and vaginal classes. Those classes were, these are the uterine classification. Okay. Now we will talk about the cervical and vaginal classification. Cervical classes are C0 normal cervix, C1 septate cervix. Now there is a septum inside the cervix. Okay. C2 is the double normal cervixes. There are two cervixes, but they are completely normal. C3 will be classified only when there is unilateral cervical aplasia. So on the one side there is cervical aplasia. C4 is cervical aplasia. That means there is no cervix at all. Okay, that is classified as C4. Vaginal classes are B0 means normal vagina, B1 longitudinal non-obstructing septum. So there is a longitudinal septum inside the vagina, but that is not obstructing at all. But B2 is the longitudinal septum, but with obstruction. That means that now there is a longitudinal septum inside the vagina, and that septum is obstructing the menstrual flow. Okay, B3 is the transverse septum or imperforate hymen. Now we have got a transverse septum inside the vagina, and B4 is called vaginal aplasia. There is no vagina at all. Okay, so together the three components combine into one code, UCV, giving a complete reproducible anatomical description in any case. Okay, so these are the classification of vaginal. And okay, now let's talk about the clinical significance. Clinical significance, how do they present? So all of these anomalies, how do they present? What are the clinical manifestations at the time of presentation? Recurrent first and second trimester pregnancy losses. So if a patient is having the recurrent pregnancy losses, then we might have to think of a Mullerian duct developmental disorders. Okay, classically septate uterus can cause these pregnancy losses. Okay, primary amenorrhea with cyclical pain. This will happen in case of obstructed hemiuterus. If the hemiuterus is obstructed, hemiuterus is a U5 classification. Okay, U4, I guess, classification. Our transverse vaginal septum. So there was a transverse vaginal septum and that can cause primary amenorrhea because it blocks the vagina completely and menstrual flow does not flow at all. So that we have got primary amenorrhea. Preterm labor, malpresentation or infertility. These could be the presentations. Often asymptomatic, found incidentally on pelvic imaging. Associated renal anomalies. This is very important because Mullerian and Wolffian ducts, they develop side by side. So unilateral renal agenesis, atopic or horseshoe kidney, they are common associated with U4 hemiuterus and U5 anomalies. U4 and U5 anomalies are often associated with renal anomalies. So we must check out renal imaging. We must do the renal imaging along with the pelvic imaging of the uterine cavity. So in order to diagnose, because these are often associated with each other. Diagnostic workup. So how can we basically identify these anomalies? How can we look or find whether the patient is having these anomalies or not? First of all, we can do this so by pelvic ultrasound. Pelvic ultrasound will give us, this is the first line screen, it will give us 3D transvaginal ultrasound distinguishes septate from bicorporeal uteri with high accuracy. Septate uterus, this means that there is a septum inside the cavity, but the outer fundal contour is completely normal. But in bicorporeal uterus, outer fundal contour will have an indentation. So now we will get to have bicorporeal uterus, okay? And we can diagnose it on the pelvic ultrasound. MRI pelvis, it is the gold standard cross-sectional assessment of fundal contour, junctional zone, and associated cervical and vaginal anomalies. So all of these anomalies can be picked up on MRI pelvis. Hysteroscopy and laparoscopy can also help. confirms cavity shape internally. Laparoscopy assesses the external fundal contour when MRI is equivocal. Okay. Renal tract ultrasound, we will also go for it. Screens for the associated Wolffian duct or renal anomalies at the time of diagnosis. Okay. The key takeaways are there are three failure points. That means there are 3 points: organogenesis, fusion, and resorption. But if all of these don't occur, if the organogenesis doesn't occur, that means now we get hemiuterus or aplasia. If there is failed fusion, we get bicarpal uterus. But if there is failed resorption, now we get septate uterus. Okay. ESHRE or ESG replaced the ASF or ASRM as the clinical standard. Now we precisely codes uterus from U0 to U6, cervix C0 to C4, and vaginas B0 to B4. Septate U2 is the most common clinically relevant anomaly and it's the most treatable one, strongly associated with recurrent pregnancy losses. Okay. So if the patient is having recurrent pregnancy losses, then you must think of septate uterus. Okay. Always image the kidneys. Shared embryological region with Wolffian duct means renal anomalies frequently coexist. So these are the scenario-based quizzes. Now let's talk about the first question. Clinical scenario is that a 29-year-old woman presents with 3 consecutive first and second trimester pregnancy losses. Okay. We have got pregnancy losses. Pelvic MRI shows a normal, non-indented external fundal contour. So external fundal contour is completely normal. Okay. We have got my fibromuscular septum. Okay. You can completely think of septate uterus here. Extends from the fundus all the way to the internal os. Now it's complete obstruction. So we have got complete obstruction, dividing the cavity into 2. Which is the correct classification? Correct classification. So as correct classification U2, of course, if there is the external fundal contour is normal and we have got a septum, this is U2 classification. Now we are going for the sub classification, that is internal cervical os is completely it's completely blocked. So now we have got a U2B. Okay. So U2B, this is complete septate uterus. Complete septate uterus is the answer. A 15-year-old girl has worsening cyclical pelvic pain despite ongoing periods. Okay, she's having periods and there are cyclical pelvic pain. Examination finds 2 surfaces. So there are 2 surfaces. Imaging shows 2 separate uterine horns. 2 separate uterine horns, this means bicarpal uterus. Okay, each with its own cavity and cervix, plus a vaginal septum obstructing outflow on one side with a resulting hematocolpus. Okay, this means that the blood started accumulating inside the vagina because of obstruction. Renal ultrasound shows oogenesis of the kidney on the obstructed side. Best classification. Now let's take a look at this. We have got, if we talk about the uterine, we have got bicarnoate. Bicarnoate, this means that this is diadelphous pattern, uterus U3. Bicarnoate is the U3 portion, each with its own cavity and uterus. We have got U3B, C2. Oh, okay, we have got 2 surfaces, so C2, and we have got outflows, obstruction outflow. This is the longitudinal septum, vaginal septum, longitudinal vaginal septum obstructing. Now we have got B2. Okay, so diadelphous pattern uterus, double cervix and obstructing vaginal septum. This is the best classification. Okay. Another scenario is that a 17-year-old presents with primary amenorrhea, okay, despite normal breast and pubic hair development. From normal breast, pubic hair, secondary sexual characteristics are completely normal, but the patient is having primary amenorrhea. This means examination finds a blind ending vaginal dimple. MRI shows both ovaries present, but no identifiable uterine corpus, cervix, or upper vaginal diagnosis and goal. So this is basically MRKH syndrome. MRKH syndrome occurs when there is ovaries are present, but there are no identifiable. Internal genitalia is completely absent. Okay, this is called MRKH syndrome. So now let's code it. How can we code it? Where there is no uterine corpus, no identifiable uterine corpus. This means complete agenesis, uterine agenesis, aplastic uterus. This is U5B. Okay, and no cervix, this is C4, no vagina, C4. Okay, so this is MRKH syndrome, aplastic uterus, cervical and vaginal aplasia. During an infertility workup, 3D ultrasound incidentally shows a uterus with normal external fundal contour. Okay, Frontal contour is normal, but a narrow T-shaped endometrial cavity and thickened lateral walls. How should this be classified as? This is U1A, T-shaped dysmorphic uterus. Okay. Next question is that which single embryological error best explains a septate uterus in contrast to a bicorporeal uterus? So in septate uterus, there is fusion of the failure to fuse the failure of resorption, failure of the medial septum to resorb after the normal duct fusion. That will result into the septate uterus. But the bicorporeal uterus will occur when there is when there is no fusion of Mullerian ducts at all. Okay, so this septate uterus depends upon the failure of the medial septum to resorb after normal duct fusion. So these are the answers. Thank you very much. See you in the next lecture.